Ottawa's mayor is declaring a state of emergency as demonstrations that started against COVID-19 mandates show no signs of ending anytime soon.
I'm staying here for the people.
This is a nationwide insurrection.
Hello and welcome to the Nexus. Today we're looking at Canada's Freedom Convoy. Thousands of Canadian truckers protesting against vaccine mandates and other COVID restrictions imposed on them by the government. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who willingly took a knee during the Black Lives Matter protests, looks down on these truckers as a fringe group and is refusing to meet or talk with them. However, the protests have been going on for about 2 weeks now and have been described as the most serious crisis the Canadian capital has ever faced, currently in a state of emergency. To some, the truckers are freedom-loving heroes risking it all to liberate Canada from Trudeau's tyranny. To others, they're a small group of idiots causing unnecessary disruption. We'll give you the facts, and you can decide for yourself.
Up in Canada, the convoy of truckers converging on Ottawa is growing larger by the day.
It's a togetherness like I've never felt before.
The demonstration began as a protest against the federal government's vaccine mandate for truckers who enter Canada from the U.S. It's grown into a larger movement.
I think this is more of a freedom movement.
We're just really tired of getting our freedoms trampled on.
Somebody has to stand up for Canada, and the truckers are doing it.
We want those great Canadian truckers to know that we are with them all the way. They've really shown something.
We have certain rights and freedoms that our veterans fought for, and one man is taking it away.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa do not represent the views of Canadians.
It's Trudeau versus truckers in a battle over Canada's COVID vaccine mandate.
The Cross Canada Truckers protest has arrived in the capital. This was the scene on Parliament Hill where protesters have started to gather.
They are protesting not just vaccine mandates, but to demand an end to pandemic-related restrictions, calling for government officials like the Prime Minister to resign.
This is a moving target, and it doesn't seem to be consistent across the protesters with what exactly they're looking for.
We need our lives back. It's not about vaccines, it's about our lives.
We are not intimidated.
This convoy converged on Ottawa, and Justin Trudeau left the building, even left the city out of concerns for security.
Our nation's capital is under a state of emergency tonight. Late today, Ottawa's mayor made the decision saying the ongoing protest poses a serious danger and threat to the safety and security of residents.
We're in the midst of a serious emergency, the most serious emergency our city has ever faced.
And all we hear is these horns going all night long. It's driving us crazy. I haven't slept in 3 days.
A little bit intimidating coming into work, which I have to do every day.
We've heard the message, and now you're hurting our businesses.
I feel bad for them, but when you want to change something in history, there's always going to be some uncomfortableness involved in that.
Our departure will be based on the Prime Minister doing what is right.
We're going to stay here until this mandate is lifted. This truck does not move.
How long can you wait?
Months. I'm staying here for the people.
Trucker freedom! Trucker freedom!
Well, the Prime Minister calls them a small fringe minority of people, but they are still a sizable number, and they have some serious concerns. About 15% of Canada's 120,000 truckers are not vaccinated, so that's around 18,000 men and women. Many of them have to drive back and forth to the United States, Canada's biggest trading partner. But as of 15th of January, they can only re-enter the country by road if they've been vaccinated. The US brought in vaccine mandates for truckers crossing the border about a week later. So now, even if the Canadian government gave in to the truckers, they still couldn't cross into America without being vaccinated. But of course, the Freedom Convoy has become about more than just vaccine mandates. Organisers say it's now about winning back lots of different rights and liberties taken away by the government over the last 2 years. At first glance, the truckers have little hope against the state, but they do have some influential backers. The truckers have an uphill struggle, there's no doubt about that. They believe they are surrounded by powerful enemies, the government, the mainstream media, and big tech. The Prime Minister, who willingly took a knee for Black Lives Matter, was once full of praise for them, tweeting, "While many of us are working from home, there are others who aren't able to do that, like the truck drivers who are working day and night to make sure our shelves are stocked. So when you can, please thank a trucker for everything they're doing and help them however you can." But 2 years later, when some of them started protesting about vaccine mandates, the PM turned his back.
I have attended protests and rallies in the past when I agreed with the goals, when I supported the people expressing their concerns and their issues. Black Lives Matter is an excellent example of that. But I have also chosen to not go anywhere near protests that have expressed hateful rhetoric, violence towards fellow citizens, and a disrespect not just of science, but of the frontline health workers and, quite frankly, the 90% of truckers who have been doing the right thing to keep Canadians safe, to put food on our tables.
For the Canadian truckers, these words were a betrayal and a total nonsense. The vast majority of protesters were peaceful, and the demos have been marred by only a handful of far-right louts who may or may not have gatecrashed. The Freedom Convoy supporters, at home and abroad, wonder why Trudeau prefers BLM over the truckers.
His job as the Prime Minister is not just to meet with constituent groups with whom he agrees. His job is, in fact, to hear input from all sides, all industrial bases.
Like the PM, Canada's state broadcaster CBC appears to have an unfavourable view of the truckers. One of its anchors was accused of spreading fake news about them when she asked a government minister if the Freedom Convoy was backed by the Russians.
Given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
There was reportedly a backlash online, with people on Twitter complaining, when in doubt, blame the ever-elusive Russian actors. Big tech completes the circle. The American crowdfunding site GoFundMe is refusing to give the truckers the $8 million raised by their supporters over the past couple of weeks. GoFundMe says it shut down the Freedom Convoy 2022 fundraising page because reports of violent incidents breach its terms of service.
We went after the funding. Our efforts, combined with the city's efforts, eliminated the GoFundMe. $10 million are no longer accessible to the demonstrators.
It's not looking good for the truckers then, but wait, their supporters are mobilizing too. Elon Musk tweeting, "Canadian truckers rule." He also complained about GoFundMe's double standards. Donald Trump's also chimed in.
For the Canadian truckers, you've been reading about it, who are resisting bravely these lawless mandates, are doing more to defend American freedom than our own leaders by far.
The British social commentator Russell Brand, with nearly 5 million subscribers on YouTube, can't praise the truckers enough.
The Canadian freedom truckers have kept on trucking for freedom. Why does the legacy media want to convey them so negatively and smear them?
And Canada's very own celebrity professor Jordan Peterson says the truckers are standing up for all Canadians.
We could return our lives to what they should be. We could have our country back. Remove these mandates that are crippling our businesses and interfering with our private lives and stopping us from being able to travel. Seize the day.
Let's bring in our guest now. In the top left there, we have David Craig, a reporter with Bridge City News, who's been very busy covering this story. Stockwell Day, former leader of the Canadian Alliance Party and former member of the Conservative Party. He supports the convoy. Catherine McKennie, Ottawa City Councillor, who's furious with the truck drivers. And Dave MacKenzie, owner of the Canadian Trucking Magazine and long-haul truck driver himself. He was a part of the Alberta leg of the convoy. David Craig, you've described it as a pretty good-natured, organised protest, but the mayor and others have called a state of emergency and said this is the biggest challenge the city has ever faced. You can't both be right.
Well, no doubt this is a challenge for the city, as there's a lot of trucks and a lot of people that have been flocking towards the city. But the nature of the convoy, if you are on the ground talking with the people, seeing all different races and religions and age groups represented, you'll notice that it's actually just a convoy of love as people are trying to flock together. That's been my experience. At the end of the day, it feels like there's a tale of two stories that are trying to be told here. You've got a story that's trying to be represented by a media group, and then you have the stories that are on the ground. And we've been trying to bring real stories, real people, so that the viewer, the audience, the people who aren't there can decide for themselves what's actually happening in Ottawa.
Right. Catherine McKenzie, I mean, you've described it as being under siege, violent and intimidating acts of harassment and destruction. And when I listen to David Craig there, it just doesn't sound like a true reflection of what's happening.
There are two fronts here. There is the original convoy that came into the city that we knew would be disruptive, it would be loud, and it would be very large, and that was the case. And quite frankly, if you were part of it, you know, and down there, I'm sure it was celebratory. It brought into the city an element of extremism from elsewhere. But once the main convoy exited, what's been left behind for residents, and I'm talking about residents who live in this city, has been 24 hours a day, you know, horns blaring. I have, you know, we have windows being broken. If there's a rainbow flag in a window, we have seniors afraid to go grocery shopping. I can tell you this, and my concern is with residents that I represent in the downtown of Ottawa, and they have been abandoned by their city, by their province, and by their federal government. I've been down. I actually went down on Sunday and spoke to many of the people in the convoy with a waiver. There's a class action lawsuit. So my intent was not to engage, but just to let them know that it was happening. And I can tell you, while I was in the middle of it, I was careful, of course, but I did not feel that my safety was a concern. Okay. However, walking down the street going home, it's the element that has come into this city that has made it very dangerous to live in the downtown.
David Craig, is that element worth reporting on, or has it been overblown by the politicians and by the media?
Yeah, in my honest opinion, I think it's been very overblown. I've actually personally been chasing some of these stories that she has just mentioned, for example, a broken window, things like that, to find out the real truth. Again, I believe it's a tale of two stories that is coming out here. Of course, there is disruption, there is loud noises. I can personally attest it's not 24/7 honking. They've actually now put in effect where they will no longer be honking. But when I was there, it usually would stop around 1 a.m. But if you don't mind, the broken window fact, there was a broken window that did happen at a coffee shop. But normal downtown behavior does happen while a convoy is there. And it feels like some of that information is being scapegoated on a convoy when you can't actually attribute it or say that is a part of the convoy.
Let me ask you, Catherine, during the BLM protests in the United States and elsewhere, there was a lot more than broken windows, but you really supported them. In fact, you even went so far as to go down to the police station after there were arrests and stand there in solidarity with them. Why not with the truckers who appear to have caused not a great deal of disruption by comparison?
Okay, you have to be here. First off, only a man today could say that downtown Ottawa for its residents is unsafe. I visited an apartment building yesterday that had an arson attempt Sunday morning, where somebody went into the building, lit a fire, and taped the doors shut to trap people inside. Luckily, somebody was walking by and they were able to diffuse it. But that same building of people continue to have people driving around, harassing them.
We're a global program and we need to move on from the minutiae. I'm asking you why you felt able to support the BLM protesters and not the truckers.
That protest was a protest against an increase in a city budget. They went down, they protested against what they felt was an unfair increase in city budget over social services in their city. There were no broken windows in that protest.
Okay, let's go to Stockwell Day. Stockwell, you're saying, in 40 years of politics, I've never seen the media so united against any protest group in such a disgusting fashion. What do you mean?
Well, it is quite remarkable. Having grown up as a kid for a number of years in Ottawa, and then living there for 12 years when I was member of parliament and leader of the opposition, First of all, I can tell you, I have seen all types of very aggressive, noisy, loud, and destructive protests going on in that city over the years, none of which were immediately stopped. None of which were stopped. Everything I'm getting, reports from the ground, including talking to a 91-year-old woman who goes down there every night to talk to the truckers and to bring them soup and cake, and feeling totally at peace all the time. So these things are indeed greatly exaggerated. I can tell you from living in Ottawa for 12 years, at some distance from the Parliament building, I would walk and my wife would walk to her job daily. And the amount of times over 12 years that she would call, very concerned, the homeless population, many of them, not all in Ottawa, are very aggressive and a real concern to citizens. And I say that as someone who worked in one of those homeless shelters volunteering without telling the media. 1 day a week. So there's a lot of great people in the shelters, but there's a lot of very aggressive ones.
Look, clearly,
the aggressiveness is going on in Ottawa is not at all from the truckers.
Clearly, we are not going to resolve the tale of two stories that David Craig mentioned earlier. You're going to have different accounts. That's fine. Let's move on to Dave MacKenzie now. Dave, not only do you run a trucking magazine, you're also a trucker. You were part of the Convoy. You're now in North Dakota in the United States. There will be people, Dave, who say, look, it's your choice. Take the vaccine, don't take the vaccine, but don't create any trouble. Why don't you just take the vaccine and keep on trucking?
Right. They're trying to spin it to make it all about the taking the vaccine, taking a jab in the arm. That's what they're trying to make it about. This is not what it's about. It's about the mandates. It's about something that hasn't worked for 2 years. It's about the rise in suicides and domestic disputes in children and anxiety in them because they can't see each other, they can't play, they can't go. They're making it about a jab. What it was is this was already a movement about mandates. And then the final stop was when our heroes turned to zeros. I'm talking about the truckers. And you do not take a jab in the arm. You can't do what you've been doing for 2 years during a pandemic, crossing the border, bringing food and medicine, and they're turning it into a jab. And can I weigh on Ottawa for a minute? Because I've got people on the ground with body cams, and I have police sources because I have a police background. The crime has dropped in Ottawa by 70%. The people of Ottawa feel safer with all the people there that are tens and hundreds of thousands singing "O Canada," getting food, getting coffee.
I get it, Dave. I need to. You talked about the people there, David Craig. There are surveys that say the people in Ottawa and in Canada generally, on the whole, do not support the truckers. They don't identify with them, and that they support the vaccine mandates. I know that you're skeptical of the surveys. Why should you be skeptical of them?
First of all, I think surveys are manipulated very easy, and it depends on the group. I know I believe a part of the reason why Canada's gone wrong is because we have relied on micropolling, or politicians have relied on micropolling, representing a false amount of people in different situations. And my experience just hasn't reflected that from all the stories and individuals I have personally spoken with and witnessed.
There are reports of one flag with a swastika on it, the war memorial being desecrated. Are those reports true? And does it in any way reflect the Freedom Convoy as a whole?
Well, in my experience walking down there, I was on the ground 16 hours a day, 2 weeks. I did not witness one Confederate flag, one Nazi symbol in my entire time. I know there's pictures circulating. I believe there's even a video of the odd person that person or whoever that was does not represent the Freedom Convoy. If you want to know the message of the Freedom Convoy, you can watch all of the press conferences that we were at. We were recording live and see what their actual message is.
Yeah.
Quickly, with the war memorial, there was a video, or apparently someone did do something there. But again, does not reflect the Freedom Convoy. The Freedom Convoy actually went above and beyond, came over, and they've done the ceremony around it, laying on the flowers to show we respect what people have sacrificed in the past to show their respect for it. So they're trying to go over and above whenever these bad stories are circulating to correct it, even if they didn't do it in the first place.
Understood. Catherine McKenzie, we've heard, in the media that the leadership of the Freedom Convoy, there are a number of people associated with the far right and with separatist movements. Is that one of your concerns?
My concern is the safety of the residents in downtown Ottawa. I find it astounding that 3 large white men right now are telling me that what my residents are telling me, that they are fearful.
Yeah, excuse me, Catherine. Excuse me, Catherine. Catherine, no, excuse me. Excuse me. Why are you making ad hominem attacks about their identity? This is not, is it necessary? I mean, why can't you just challenge them on what they're saying?
I'm not
Either they're factual or they're not factual. I mean, they've made their case. Why don't you make yours in the way that is reasonable for fair and honest discourse?
What are you looking for? You want me
I'm looking for your argument.
Respond to mandates?
I'm not looking for you to run them down. I'm not looking for you to run them down as people. I'm looking for you to challenge their arguments and their evidence.
The reality is that if you were down in the convoy and you agree, or you're not challenging them, and you're a tall white man, you probably aren't in any danger. When people tell me, let me put it this way. When people tell me, I've gone down, I've spoken to them, I was there over the weekend, the first weekend, the second weekend, it was jubilant, I was in no harm, I believe that. I do. Because if you're there and you're part of the movement, you are not. Again, I don't understand why nobody can quite understand what the collateral damage is here to the rest of the very dense residential neighborhood just outside of where the convoy.
Okay, you've made your point about that. But Catherine, the question was about the links of the Freedom Convoy's coordination and leadership to far-right and separatist groups. If you're not concerned by that, if you're not aware of it, I can move on to someone else.
Well, I am aware of it. Of course I am. The whole country, the whole world is aware of it. I don't think that it's any secret. Do I believe that a trucker from Lethbridge who came in, January 28th was part of that? Perhaps not. But that trucker left. That trucker didn't stalk people in the city. That trucker didn't cause the kind of individual harm. And was every trucker a part of an extreme group? No, of course not. I'm talking about what's been left behind.
Fair enough.
Talking about what is here today.
I need to address this question. Stockwell Day. Look, there are concerns that the Freedom Convoy's leadership and coordinators are associated to far-right and separatist groups, mentioning James Bowder, stated support for QAnon, and Tamara Lich, from the Maverick Party, which advocates some sort of separatist movement. Are these people dangerous people?
Not at all. I was disturbed, as everybody was, to see some creep with a Nazi flag in the background. People tried to find out who that was. I'm part of a group, actually, that's I personally put up $1,000 towards a reward for finding that creep. He is not part of that at all. The truckers are doing things like helping to shovel the snow. They're salting the streets. They're assisting people. As I indicated earlier, I'm hearing from very elderly women, personally, who go down there every day. They just want equal treatment. There's been no equal treatment from the media, for instance, on the fact that a far-left extremist ran his car into a group of the convoy supporters at one of the convoys. He ran 4 people down. One is in hospital. I don't hear Catherine raise that
Dave,
one peep. That's a left-wing extremist. And the weekend of the rally in Ottawa, there was a rally in Toronto where people were screaming and shrieking, "Kill the Jews, death to Jews." Not one media report. All the truckers are asking for is a little bit of balance from the media.
Okay, Stockwell, you've made your point. Dave, one last question. People like Catherine and others in Ottawa would like to see the federal government and federal authorities taking over and confronting and clearing out the truckers. What will the truckers do if that happens? What is the future of this Freedom Convoy movement?
The majority of Canadians support the truckers. the majority. They've been told, and the narrative has been it's a fringe minority. The actual government of Canada was only elected by 32% of the people in the last election. The majority of people support this convoy, and it will do what happened in Alberta, where you have more people coming in. And two last things I want to make quickly, talking about Ottawa, the economy of Ottawa, the shops in Ottawa. I've got people on the ground there with dash cams. They are making money. You get 1.5 million people come in on a Saturday.
Okay, we're running out of time.
This convoy, the economy boosts.
Dave MacKenzie, David Craig, Stockwell Day, Catherine McKenney, thank you all for your contributions to the Nexus today. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Remember, if you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.